Good to have you here, and in our first story, Minister for Education Dr. Matthew Opoku has mounted a strong defense for this year's computerized school selection and placement system, CSSPS, insisting the process would have been smooth but for a breach. Addressing the media on challenges that have characterized the process since Monday, Dr. Opoku also reiterated his earlier allegation that some individuals, in an attempt to score cheap political points, urged individuals to mass up at the Black Star Square to create the impression that the system is defective.
8:47 a.m. on the 10th of September, we started getting reports from heads of certain Category A schools that the number of students who are self-placing are going above the number of students when you add it to the automatic placement that the schools could contain. Because every school before we started had this ceiling. So Wesley Girls had a ceiling of 510. And they were calling back and telling us. Yasantua called and said 97 more students have been placed in the school than allowable. Prempeh College talked about 47, and other schools give these numbers. So we started investigation and we realized that there was something wrong. So when we realized that there was something wrong, we closed down the self-placement model because we couldn't allow it to continue. If you look at the slips, the two self-placement model, slips, you'd see the true slip has clearly on it self-placement. Not only that, it tells you the track, the time school is opening, and whether the child is a boarding student or is a day student. The fake ones that came, that people went to school with, when you look at it, you see it has got no self-placement embossed, and some of the kids went to the schools without an indication of the track, whether they were going to go gold or green, and there was not even a date that the school started, because green track was starting on 15th September, and gold track was going to start on the 15th of November. The residency was also not shown. So clearly we had to do something. At that time, we counted up to 22,000 plus people who had been able to go through such a self-placement. So we shut it down. And the Director General came up with a statement to tell Ghanaians that he has ordered for the self-placement model to come down. We then worked on it, and we realized that truly they had been breached. 2 days after, on the 12th September, 8 a.m. in the morning, we brought the self-placement portal up and requested everybody to go through the self-placement. Truly, if you went through the first self-placement and you got Fansipim, or you got Prempeh, or you got Yasantua, or you got Wesley Girls, those schools would not be available during the second self-placement choice, because those schools were already full after the automatic placement. So those students would not necessarily get. The incident that happened in Fansipim is that some of the students who went through the self-placement, who got to the school very, very early, went to pick prospectus. And then we saw the C's that they had gone back going to the school. By the time they went back, all the heads knew that those things had been annulled. So their placement form that they were holding was not on the headmaster's portal to indicate that you could come to that school. So the heads turned them away, rightly so. Nobody bought anything for that school that would go waste. Because those things that are peculiar to Kwaboche are the school uniform, the house dress, and the school cloth, which are supplied only when you enroll in the school. So you couldn't have said you have gone to buy things for Kwaboche that are only for Kwaboche, and now your parents have been stuck with it, because those things that you bought is available for you in the secondary school that you go and choose and you go back. So that is what happened. So things were going on normally till we hit the Black Monday, I would say. I would describe it as our Black Monday, because the unexpected happened. Ever since we started school placement, it has never happened that everybody has got his choice school. And every time people want to change their choice schools that they have been given by the computer. Unfortunately for us, unanticipated, people were encouraged to come to Plaster Square and misbehave. We know for a fact, we know on record, because even yesterday, some of the Queen mothers were in my office. People called people to come and demonstrate against what is happening. People sent text messages to people that call radio stations and lambast the government, lambast CSSPS placement. But this is a system, ladies and gentlemen, that I've demonstrated, that Sunday evening, 75% of the students had already been placed.
Meanwhile, the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition is demanding a full-scale investigation by an independent committee to assess the current operational framework and system to ascertain the cause of the system's security and integrity. It further demands that the report from that investigation is made public. Speaking of investigation reports, government has rejected the recommendation by the Ayawaso West Wuogon Commission that the national security operative who allegedly slapped Ningo Prampram MP Sam George should be prosecuted. This is contained in a copy of the white paper issued by government on the commission's findings, cited by JoyNews. Though the commission believes the operative, Mohammed Sulemana, should be charged for assaulting the MP, government states there is reason to believe Mr. Sulemana was provoked. Joining us on the line for some analysis is private legal practitioner Opoku. Mr. Opoku, thank you very much for joining us. You've seen this. What does government's response to this recommendation mean? Mr. Opoku, if you're with us, we want to know what's the meaning of what government's response is. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost Mr. Opoku, the private legal practitioner. Let's re-establish that connection with him. But meanwhile, security expert Dr. Kwesi Ening has underscored the recommendation by the ML Shorts Commission to disband National Security SWAT team. The Shorts Commission tasked to investigate the violence that characterized the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election says the establishment of a SWAT unit at the National Security Council Secretariat is unconstitutional. We'll hear from Dr. Kwesi Ening shortly, but let's go back to the phone lines to speak with lawyer Opoku. Mr. Opoku, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Opoku, if you're there, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm here.
So you've heard that government says there's no need to prosecute Mohammed Sulemana because he may have been provoked by Sam George. What does that mean?
Oh, I can barely hear you, but I've heard aspects of what you asked about provocation. If you can just highlight it a bit more.
Yes,
so
I am asking that. Yeah. What does government's response mean? What does it mean when they say they can't prosecute him because there may be provocation?
Thank you very much. I've just read the excerpts that you sent to me. First of all, we need to discuss this whole matter in the context of the law that regulates commissions of inquiry. There is, at least as it stands now, enough material which confirms the fact that recommendations made by a commission of inquiry, such as what we are discussing now, cannot be the basis of further proceedings, especially criminal proceedings or criminal prosecution. So for a start, there cannot be any recommendation. None of the recommendations made in the report, even if it's accepted by government, can form the basis of prosecution, criminal prosecution in court, as far as I understand it. Then secondly, provocation is a defense, but the person has to be taken to court first before the issue of provocation may be raised. So as that stands, my response on the specific issue is that, one, the government could have even said that to the extent that the commission recommended prosecution, criminal prosecution on the basis of their findings, that on that basis alone doesn't invoke the jurisdiction of the court. But as for provocation, the if the Attorney General decides to take a person to court, it is for that person to raise the issue of provocation. And you know that the whether or not criminal proceedings are to be commenced, it is the exclusive remit of the Attorney General. And there has been recent decisions to the effect that the Attorney General cannot be compelled to commence criminal proceedings nor maintain one which is pending.
Lawyer, on the first point you raised, that is the fact that proceedings of the Commission of Inquiry cannot form the basis for a criminal prosecution. It's the legal opinion of these three persons who served on the commission that there is enough grounds to prosecute Mr. Suleimana for assault on Mr. Sam George. Can governments decide that based on this advice, they would investigate assault and prosecute Mr. Suleimana as such without necessarily considering the evidence that was tendered during the commission's hearings?
If I were to advise the government or the Attorney General, as if I have sufficient experience in law to do so, I would have just ignored the recommendation and form my own opinion on whether or not what the gentleman did may be a cogent or safe ground on which the Attorney General may commence criminal proceedings. Because the moment you use the recommendations of the Commission as the basis, you are running yourself into serious trouble as far as the state of the law at this moment is concerned. So if it is the Attorney General that solely determines whether the conduct or the omission of a person constitutes a ground for criminal proceedings, and she can do so without any prompting or any advice or any recommendation from even a commission of inquiry.
If you were to advise the Attorney General, would you say that there is enough grounds in that video that we saw just a few minutes ago to prosecute Mr. Suleimana?
I think I've answered it in a way. I'm saying that if I were to advise the Attorney General, I would ask the Attorney General to at least commission the police or ask the police or the Attorney General's own department to, on their own, exclusively investigate the matter and determine whether there is enough grounds to commence criminal proceedings against the gentleman and not use the Commission's report or recommendation in any way, so that you stay clear of possible dispute or contestation. And that is what I would have advised the Attorney General, subject to her acceptance anyway.
Now, Mr. Opon, you earlier said that provocation is a defense that someone can raise in court. Does it then mean that there's no basis to say, because you can raise a defense of provocation, I will not start a prosecution or an attempt to prosecute?
In the first place, I do not understand that to be the import of the decision of the government. And again, as I said, not even the president, as far as I understand it, can interfere with the Attorney General's decision to commence criminal proceedings or not to commence criminal proceedings. It is the sole prerogative of the Attorney General under the Constitution. So it is for the Attorney General to determine whether, on the basis of the defense of provocation, criminal proceedings should or should not be commenced at all.
So does it then mean that even after this white paper has been issued, the Attorney General can proceed to commence a prosecution?
Well, if the Attorney General strongly believes that she has exclusively conducted her own investigation or through such as the police, mandated by law, and there's enough to commence criminal proceedings, whether irrespective of and without reference to the Commission's recommendation, that is the sole prerogative of the Attorney General.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Opon, for joining us. He is a private legal practitioner and a lecturer of the law. We proceed with this story, and we can now listen to Dr. Christian Owusu, who is a security expert. He has underscored the recommendation by the Emil Short Commission to disband National Security SWAT team.
It must be disbanded. It's a matter of National Security Agency, because that unit is a threat to the stability of this country and their actions a danger also to this country. I mean, when I appeared before the commission, I think my submission was very clear. You cannot have a force whose recruitment, equipping, financing, operational discharge, and performance are not subject to parliamentary oversight. That unit's performance and behavior becomes an existential threat to this country. So, yes, I mean, the recommendations are good. Probably they could have been a little bit stronger. But expanding the SWAT team and then retraining them prior to integration into the larger security apparatus becomes an imperative. The junior minister cannot and should not have had the authority to mobilize and deploy troops in a manner that the substantive minister who appears and responds to Parliament did not know. And I think that creates a disturbing picture of a not so clear lines of authority, of hierarchy, of command and control, and who ultimately takes the political responsibility for deploying those men. Individuals must be held responsible and accountable for their acts of commission or omission, particularly when they are occupying sensitive positions in which actions that do not follow laid down standard operating procedures can contribute first to harming lives and property, but even more disturbingly, undermining the sanctity of established procedures. You know, the security field is what drives, you know, the economy, people's trust in government, you know, the belief that systems are working. So those who handle that position are in a very sensitive place. And the report's recommendations, if I understand it correctly, is basically saying, look, let's try to put in place the systems if they don't exist. If they do, let's try and follow them so that in the performance of their legitimate duties, people can be held accountable. Because, see, in a parliamentary democracy, the oversight roles that the Finance Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, that the Defense and Interior Committee plays in ensuring that we get optimal performance that is transparent and respects human rights and the rule of law by the security agencies is very important. But when you establish a SWAT team that even the Inspector General of Police and other ministers were unaware of, and how they are deployed, didn't follow established rules of procedure, then that threatens the democracy that we all so cherish.
Away from the Commission's report, government is today fighting off claims by the minority in Parliament that it has shown little commitment to finish health projects started by the John Mahama administration. Health Minister Kweku Agyeman says the NDC MPs were mischievous in failing to speak about projects started by the previous NPP administration that have equally been abandoned. The minority in Parliament earlier this month toured parts of the country to assess the state of abandoned health facilities, raising concerns about a lack of progress. The Health Minister, however, says government has actually finished many of the hospitals abandoned by the NDC administration.
I stress the word that my party, that is in government today, inherited these projects, 10 polyclinics in the central region. The contractor, Mrs. Vamit. Locations are Potsing, Bemponeja, Echi Sunkwa, Ekumfi Nakwa, the Rampon, Mankron, Briwa, Besiase. These are the 10 locations for the 10 polyclinics being done by Vamit Construction. When I went to commission Central Region, at one stage, the young men there, guarded by the former Deputy Minister for Finance, pelted stones at my group that were trying to commission the place. And the idea was politics. And I told Ato that this is not politics. When it comes to health, I try to take away the politics in me. He was thinking we were taking credit since he started the projects. That I said, that is not what I came to do. And in his presence, I told her this was started by the previous regime and we don't have any obligation to leave them standing. So we have continued and completed. And just like President Mills commissioned the N1 motorway, that was started by Akufo, in the same spirit, that President Akufo-Addo would do what was left behind, that we should do. We also had 5 polyclinics in Greater Accra region. For them, only approvals from Cabinet and Parliament had been done. We went ahead to assess funding, and we've completed all the 5 in Greater Accra region.
We stay with the health sector, and the medical drone service introduced 5 months ago is proving crucial in saving lives. In the following reports, the JoyNews Health Desk finds out how the new service is impacting healthcare delivery. Matilda Wemega has the story of 3 beneficiary facilities and now reports.
George Apiabuedu heads the laboratory department of the Tafo Government Hospital in the Eastern region. Together with his team, they assess different body fluids collected from patients at the hospital. This department over the years has had to rely on the benevolence of individuals and institutions for the blood needs of patients and occasionally the Koforidua Central Blood Bank.
If it happens that you need blood and then we have depleted our blood bank, we have used already what we have already, the only option available is for us to refer. And you know the nature of our routes, the bumpiness and the potholes and all that, we don't know what will happen. So in our case, I think that it is improving the quality of care we are giving to our clients.
Over 25 blood deliveries have been received at the Tafo Government Hospital since the start of the medical drone service. The hospital says an emergency situation which could have been deadly was saved when an anti-snake venom was delivered through the drone service. Prince Edupe Quinn, who heads the pharmacy department of the Tafo Government Hospital, says a few of such cases have been dealt with.
We had a case for anti-snake. You understand the issue of snake bite. Yeah. Within 15 minutes, it was delivered to us, and then the patient had it on the water. I can only remember one time that we had a small problem with it delivered to us. It was an ampoule, like bottled product. I think there were about 10 of them they brought. All of them were broken. We notified them just at the time that we got the delivery, and they took notice of it. And I think when they got a new stock, they replaced for us. Apart from that, we haven't had any issue.
The Kibi Government Hospital is one of the 32 health facilities currently being served under the drone system. For emergency cases like replacing blood lost during child delivery, women will have to be referred to a bigger health facility like the Koforidua Central Hospital, which will normally take between 45 minutes to 1 hour drive from Kibi. Audrey Dinkra, who is in charge of labor ward at the Kibi Government Hospital, says they are able to handle more of these cases because of the availability of blood through the drone service.
Blood products are like fresh frozen plasma, which usually you will not get it. If had it not been for the drone services, you request it through medical stores at Koforidua. But because of the drone services, we request and they bring it to us here, directly here. And for pregnant women going through cesarean section, it's a mandatory that they have a standby blood there. Because you don't know if you are going to cut a vessel or an artery. So for the drone services, we get a standby blood there. So in an emergency, we fall on that blood.
For addressing cases like anemia in children, constant supply of blood dropped through the drones have been of great help. That's according to the head of Children's Ward, Alfred Owusu.
Our major challenge is the financial issue, because the drone service providing the bloods, we're expecting the cost should be very affordable, should be very low, but the cost is a little bit high 250 ml of blood.
Okay.
The cost is about 80 cedis.
Okay.
Yes, when you request for above 300 ml, the cost is about 150 Ghana cedis. So if they can reduce the cost, it will be of benefit to us.
Over 60 blood and other blood products, including medicines, have been supplied to the Suhum Government Hospital. Victor Owusu is the hospital's administrator.
And when there's an emergency, we put in requests and they're able to deliver.
32 health facilities from different parts of the eastern region are currently receiving blood products and other essentials from the Unako Zipline Drone Center located in Suhum. For JoyNews, Matilda Pamaga, Eastern Region.
Now, farmers and markets women lose up to 50% of perishable vegetables as a result of poor storage. Traders say this wipes out their profits and sometimes their entire investments. Well, a group of innovators in this year's Cosmos Innovation Center's Agritech Challenge have a solution. They have built a solar-powered cold room to preserve perishable vegetables. On Tech Thursday, JoyNews' Henry Kwesibedu spoke to them as they tested the prototype at the Kunkumba market here in Accra. And here's this report, read to you.
Perishable foods. Fresh fruit and vegetables start to perish as soon as they are harvested, especially in hot temperatures. The quality of vegetables falls quicker as they are transported from remote villages to marketplaces. According to Ghana's Food and Agriculture Ministry, farmers and vegetable sellers lose up to a third of their vegetables after harvest. Food produced are mostly preserved traditionally, as some leave them at the mercy of the weather. Here at the Kunkumba market, one of the country's biggest foodstuff markets, the losses are negatively affecting vegetable sellers.
My tomatoes deteriorate by the day, and I have to go through the pain of sorting them daily. Some perish as a result. I sometimes lose a third of my produce and make lots of losses.
Thermostor is in the final of this year's KIC Agritech Challenge and has built a solar-powered cold room for a 24/7 off-grid storage and preservation of perishable vegetables.
We are building this system for market women, retailers of fresh vegetables who have to undergo so much losses because there's really no system that deals with the problems they have. So this solution is built for Auntie Ama, Auntie Akusia, and every other market woman who is there and is making losses. So at the end of the day, instead of taking the tomatoes to a place where they will be hot, where they won't be well covered, where pests and then rodents will go and eat it, you can bring it to a safe place like Thermostor, and then we can keep it for you. The wood, first of all, serving as reinforcement for the structure and also serving as an insulator. And then the aluminium panel also serving as an insulator that will trap in the cold to prevent it from going out. So you can see that the lining is made of aluminium panels. And then at the outside, when you look at the edge, in order to prevent the cold air from coming out, we have an overlap here which is lined with silicone in order to trap the cold air in, and then nothing will come out. We also have a sensor here, a thermometer which is a sensor, so that once we switch on the system, the thermometer can automatically check the temperature inside the system and then adjust it accordingly. This is a prototype. The whole idea is to scale it up so that we can have various kinds of vegetables in the same system, each one with its own temperature that will go along with it.
The device enables farmers and market women to place their produce in plastic crates for storage. According to the team that built the system, the innovation extends the shelf life of fruits and vegetables by about 2 weeks. Cosmos Innovation Center believes there's room for improvement, as the innovation could be a lifesaver for people in the vegetable value chain. Fred Phillips is Programs Officer.
Going forward, this is a prototype. They need to scale. Okay, how do you do that in a very innovative way? For me, it requires a lot more research and development. They need to look around a bit more to see what has been done in other parts of the world and how that can be infused into what they have done. Okay.
The thermostat team says the innovation will improve the increase and earnings of farmers and vegetable sellers by 25%, whilst creating employment.
Before we go for business, the Joy Clean Ghana team is today serving notice to almost all households in Choko to build toilets and keep their surroundings clean. Most of the houses visited by the team this morning lacked a toilet facility, with residents living in insanitary conditions. The homes have 3 months to build toilet facilities and 48 hours to improve the sanitary conditions or face the law. Unlike the situation in Jamestown, the assemblyman for Choko is with the team instructing residents to get to work to clean their homes and drains. JoyNews' Emefa Jodosi is with the team and joins us on the line. Emefa, where is the team at the moment? Emefa, where is the team at the moment?
Hello, Daniel.
Yes, Emefa, if you can hear me, where is the team now?
Well, so Daniel, here at Choko, I would say that the residents have been very welcoming. In fact, they led us to places where the conditions were terrible. And right at the start goal, the assemblyman for the area, Mr. Miles, walked to us, welcomed the team, took us into the community. In fact, he mobilized the entire community to get down to the gutters, take brooms, and clear every filth that is here around. But one thing that we noticed in Choko was that every household, in fact, every house that we entered lacked a toilet facility. And to all things that the entire community are forced to use 2 public toilets just around. Now, the major problem that we faced here was that the public toilet also has a problem. And so the septic tanks are broken, the covers are removed. And these operators of the public toilets have used carpet to cover the septic tanks, Daniel. And so you can imagine the stench when the environmental officers took off the carpet of this drain, of this septic tank. The entire community started smelling. And so that told the environmental officers that Choko is a place that needs serious attention, and that they will be coming here often to educate the people, because they feel that the lack, or what is possible, is the lack of education. And so they didn't send a lot of notices to them because they thought a lot of them were not abreast of the law. And so they did a lot of public education here rather than, arresting and summoning people.
Thank you very much, Nancy Emefa Jodosi, for that report. Still live on Joy News today. Coming up in business, Ghana Revenue Authority embarks on distress action to clamp down on companies and individuals who have defaulted in meeting tax obligations. Daryl Carr has the details after this.